Okay, the last part of the lecture we will talk about degrowth. So basically, in short, degrowth is a proposition from an equitable and democratic transition to a smaller economy with less production and consumption. And the central idea of degrowth is growth is not the solutions, but a part of the problem. So again, this is directly opposing sustainable development and economic growth. So degrowth as a movement, which has French origin. Actually, I'm not going to pronounce that because I don't know how to. But it involves also the idea of good life and voluntary simplicity. So there's some kind of overlapping here, but this is a European version of it. What do we mean by good life and voluntary simplicity? So it involves this association with consumerism, such as minimalist movement. I don't know whether you have heard of this, but you can check online if you haven't. And reducing work time and increasing leisure time, increasing time to spend with families and doing things that you love. And if you go to Europe, this is pretty much what is central to their life. They have always tried to work less and have more vacations. And then localizations, such as transitions movement, the permaculture movement, community supported agriculture, CSA, which we have here too in Madison. So the propagation of buying local products. And then better selecting technological innovations such as solar power energy, bicycles rather than cars. And then ultimate goal of this is to reduce consumptions for those who exceed the allowable ecological footprint, which basically refer to the rich country that overconsume beyond their biocapacity. And at the same time, they understand and allow those in the global south to continue increase their consumption and footprint. And then we have sustainable degrowth, which is mainly coming from the field of ecological economics, which is an sort of academic discipline, a branch of economics. They mainly imply physical degrowth or downsizing economic throughput as measured by material and energy flow. So it's econometric. It's based on calculations of material and energy flow rather than really talking about a way of life. And then degrowth until a certain steady state. So there's a debate here. So how much should we degrow? So the debate actually rests on how much downsizing is necessary for sustainability and whether there is an optimal scale of the economy. And then it also involves decolonizing minds, especially in the field of economics, because economics is so sort of obsessed with the rational economic actor that maximize utilities and benefits and also economic growth. So how about the relationship between degrowth and sustainable development? So degrowth propagators, both the activists originating from France and also in the intellectual circle, they shy away from sustainable development, especially its ecological modernization theory, meaning green capitalism or the aspiration to continue to modernize but take care of ecology at the same time. They don't believe in that, right? And they don't believe in that due to several reasons, like bleak environmental results in major assessments such as MA, which is the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, and also IPCC, which is the International Panel for Climate Change. And countries aspire to become rich countries that currently have unsustainable consumption. So they pose the question, does convergence of social, economic, and environmental interests really work? If it's working, it's not really obvious based on those assessments. So it supports this association of development from economic growth. So in this sense, it kind of supports post-development, even though people are still arguing whether degrowth can be considered post-development or not, mainly because degrowth is something coming out of Europe and is not really something coming out of traditional culture. But it is definitely having a grassroots element in it as well. So what are the challenges of degrowth, right? The economics would like to talk about this thing. So what would be the impacts on financial system? What would be the impact of employment and work, transportation, etc.? Because everything is kind of interconnected: the economic system, the financial system, the transportation system, and labor and industry. So degrowth must be coupled with reduced productivity or face raising unemployment, right? And then the role of local and grassroots movements that can play in terms of degrowth. What are the types of collaborations that are appropriate? So all these have to be figured out by the degrowth idea. And then the confrontation with those in power, because degrowth is fundamentally opposing the interests of powerful people in the society. So what are the criticisms of post-development in general, right? So one of them, actually I share this criticism as well in my own work, is that how post-development takes development as a homogeneous entity. So they imagine development is something that exists out there and they are the same, and there's this one thing. It's called development. So they are talking about pro-development or anti-development, but this is oversimplistic because people don't just pro or anti-development. People take up ideas from development and reappropriate them or reuse them to their own context, reapply them to their own context, and come up with a hybrid development ideas. And this is happening across the world. So people don't actually just take it or leave it, right? People take things that they think might be useful to them. So it's really simplistic to talk about either receive development or reject development. And then, of course, development is still a strong aspiration worldwide, right? If you talk to a lot of people who are marginalized by development process, they still believe that they need more development in order to be in a better positions. And then ideas such as democratization actually arises out of modernization and development. So this is one of the argument as well. Like a lot of the things become valuable after we are also exposed to ideas of modernization and development. So I think ideas, yes, but I think democratic practices might have been practiced by traditional society in different parts of the world. Not all of them, some of them. But the identification of it as democratization is actually true modernizations. And not all local culture and norms are worth embracing. I think maybe that could be true. So a pluriverse only works in societies that have strong local culture and everyone has a genuine belief in democracy itself. So maybe the question is, should we reclaim development rather than reject development? Should we have a reflexive development rather than anti-development? So this is an interesting questions which I would also invite you to ponder about. So the last part of the lecture is I'm going to ask you, do you think it is unrealistic to talk about rejecting development, and why? So basically, do you agree with most of the criticism of post-development? Why and why not? Okay, thank you very much for listening to the lecture today.